Hi, everyone. Welcome to another amazing topic of conversation. I want to thank my sponsors, the Health Channel. So please, everything related to health needs, please sign up for their newsletter. And if you need any workspaces, whether it's for a month, a year, or even just an hour, Alexa's Workspace is there for you. Welcome, Tamara. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So today's topic is about information and especially misinformation. When we were growing up, and we are in the same generation, we grew up reading the newspaper, hearing the radio, and watching the news. And it never occurred to us that it was a lie.
Correct.
We totally trusted what we were hearing. But this generation has an infinite source of information that it doesn't matter what you want to search for, you're going to find something.
That not every time is accurate. That
Correct.
is the problem. That is the actual problem. Our teens are bombarded by social media. And I don't know whether they really know what a TV is besides like a square that their parents watch, you know?
No, because they watched their streaming
Correct.
in the TV, but it wasn't like the TV as it was before.
Absolutely. So the teens in particular, they get most of the information through social media. And that is a double sword because that information is created by a user. It's not created by a media company. So that's why it is so dangerous, because you're basically hearing, reposting, you see images that people just like, and that information is being enlarged by the number of people that click on like, that they repost, that they comment. So people at the end up thinking that this is true, this is accurate, when it is not.
Well, I remember, I don't remember exactly at this point what was the new, oh, yes, the Starbucks, that Starbucks was against the, and I remember sending a lot of the people in the chats like, be careful, this is not correct. This is not correct. And I remember getting a lot of calls like, yes, it is correct. And when they found out with the statement that Starbucks put out there that this was not correct, a lot of people like didn't even know what to say. A lot of people called me and said thank you, but most of the people didn't. So how do we decode?
Wow.
How do we decode
That
the true information from the misinformation and what others want us to hear?
Well, there is not just one answer. I can tell you, and this is what I do in the school that I direct. I always tell the students, question, challenge, find the source, not because you read it in TikTok or in Instagram or in Facebook, it means that it's true. Go to the sources, whether it is a newspaper, where it is, let's say, the ADL or any type of news source that is real. Because what ends up happening is social media reaches millions, possibly billions of people just with a mouse click, okay?
Correct.
We need to understand, and people don't think about it, that those social media are for profit. They don't care the information that is being posted. It is for profit. So every time you click, that organization gets money, okay? How does information come through various forms? It can be videos, it can be images, it can be memes, it could be GIFs, comments, like. And the interesting thing is that that information gets even promoted by counter speech. So let's say that I don't like a post and I comment against it. What I am doing is I am elevating
You're
that speech.
contributing.
Exactly.
Contributing
Exactly.
to the post.
Correct. And now with the AI, this is even worse, okay? Because there are coded forms that are undetected by content managers and the AI, and all this is being bigger and bigger and bigger. And there has been a lot of educators, professors, and people that are really concerned about this kind of fake news or not accurate information, that they have gone to Facebook and their and other social media to tell them to please disconnect basically that equation, okay, that algorithm. And they don't want that. Why? Because it's not going to give them the money that they want.
Correct. You were explaining to me before we started that Facebook owner Zuckerberg said that they're a technology company and not a media company.
Correct.
Because a media company is in somehow responsible for the content that they put out there.
Correct.
But a company like Facebook, like Google, like Twitter, and now that, for example, Twitter, which became X, is not even regulated.
Exactly. Exactly. Do you know that in 2022, 62% of Americans said that they were getting the news from Facebook?
But getting the news from Facebook is getting the news from me.
From your friend and
No, or from me if
absolutely.
I write something, is that's where they're getting the news.
Correct.
And that's
Correct.
like virtually my opinion, not exactly news.
Exactly. Exactly. So this is what's happening. Okay. Most teens are connecting with their social media and they get that information from, of course, not Facebook, not for the teens. You're talking Instagram, you're talking WhatsApp, also Snapchat.
Well, the
TikTok.
WhatsApp totally exploded when there is some news, then you start getting. And now I'm trying to filter, and I don't know if for some people this is like some kind of advice, but depends on who sends it. I literally go and look to see if it's real, because some people are just forwarding messages without even acknowledging
or checking,
or
fact
checking or fact checking that it is true.
Exactly. Exactly.
How
Absolutely.
do we move past that? How do we educate? I know that you're an educator. I know that, for example, you have been a pioneer, and you have been a pioneer in educating the people. And one of the biggest examples is that you take students to the March of the Living. And for some who don't know what the March of the Living is the visit to Poland, and especially the visit to the concentration camps.
Well, the March of the Living actually have like two prongs. One is a visit to Poland to learn the history of the Jews in Europe. basically, and what happened in the Holocaust, and what humanity is being can do in moments of extremism. And then what we do is we take them to Israel to see the creation of a country that, you know, that happened, unfortunately, 3 years later, right after the Second World War. I'm sure that if Israel would have been in existence during the Holocaust, not that many people would have perished or massacred. I wouldn't say even perished. Yeah. But to answer, I feel that what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to use primary sources. And when I'm talking about primary sources are information that was written by one particular person, group, organization. And when I use also primary sources is visiting places. So as you mentioned, when I go to Poland, I talk about Holocaust deniers. And we talk about, you know, what good people can do to save others, upstanders, but also about perpetrators and about, you know, people that prosecute and so forth. So I feel that the world is our classroom, and we can learn from books, we can learn from videos and from people that experience that, okay? You cannot deny that something happened to a particular person when that person is actually telling you the story.
But some people will go and say, that's not true. They made it up.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
That's
And
the
this,
world that we're living into right now.
correct, correct. So this past week, I was with my confirmation class, and we were talking about the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. That is a book that was created in the early 1900s that talks about a conspiracy theory, okay? And
That's another big topic, the conspiracy theory.
okay, and then talking with the kids, but not just talking about just conspiracy theory, but being able to read the book with them, trying to analyze the information that is there, trying to get copies of propaganda, copies of newspapers from the 1920s to be able to see how this book, that it is an oath that was accepted and was translated into dozens, if not at least 100 different languages.
And they say that that book was the inspiration for Hitler in his book Mein Kampf.
Exactly, absolutely, yes. And the interesting thing is, I was with my group, and you're talking about intelligent 15, 16-year-old kids. And they said, but Tamara, what if what we're reading is really true? The misinformation is so big that even lies that are so big are difficult to fight.
Correct. And how do you deal with that?
Well, what I do is open conversations, question back, going into sources, okay? Trying to dig, and not just to have a conversation just for the sake of conversation, okay? Look for data. The data does not lie.
Well, there is, talking on that topic right now, there is a book based on history. It's called Prequel.
Oh, you mentioned that, yes.
And the book talks about how somehow Hitler managed to actually send propaganda through the Congress of the United States of America. And it wasn't until, and I haven't read the whole book yet, but it's a complete story on how history repeats itself.
Yes.
And
we're
we
seeing
really
that.
need to go back and learn from history.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you have Henry Ford that I believe in 1934 or something like that, he received a medal from the Nazi government because he
Correct.
was supportive. And he took the protocols of the Elders of Zion and he created an American version that it was called the International Jew. So,
Oh.
I mean, there is a lot to say about it. History should not repeat itself, yet 80 years later, we are seeing something in the Middle East that it's terrible, it's brutal, it's criminal,
Yeah, that we don't even know how to explain. But let's go back a little bit to the conspiracy theory.
okay.
One of the biggest conspiracy theory, especially the group QAnon, was about that especially the Democrats, and we're not getting into politics, let me make that clear, was that the Democrats were using some kids for pedophile, for sex trafficking, and for everything. And I remember the story of a man which literally stayed with me, and he left a video for his kids. He left the video. He was on his way to Washington, D.C., to the pizzeria where they said that they had in the basement.
1 second. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
No problem. Where
Okay.
they said that they had in the basement the whole ring of kids that were being trafficked as sex slaves. And he left this video to his kid saying that I'm sorry if something happens to him, that he really, really needed to save these kids. And he was armed, and he gets into the pizzeria, and the owner of the pizzeria goes, "What are you talking about?"
Mhm.
And he said, "You have a back door, and in the basement." He said, "We don't have a basement." And when he started shooting, the police came, he was arrested, and the whole thing. He actually believed it.
I have to say that I am amazed at stories that you hear from really educated people. And you can believe that they're believing those make-up stories that are really make-up stories. I mean, we know that in the Middle Ages, you know, there were the blood libels that existed, and you know, the Jews were blamed for taking, basically for killing children and using their blood to make the host. Okay, in 2012, you have the same idea, but moved into the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and seeing Bibi Netanyahu with a picture as if he is Dracula with fangs, holding on to Palestinian children, okay?
Eating blood.
And this is how we make matzah for Passover, okay? This is 2012. You're talking 6, 7 centuries later. They're using the same type of propaganda, and they are turning it into a different group, a different, you know,
It's becoming a whole story in itself. But
correct.
even with, and I'm going to use two very clear examples. Even with two lawsuits about defamation, one about, and I don't remember the name exactly, which I can definitely look for it in a second, about saying that the Sandy Hook massacre did not exist. And he was sued by the parents and he lost the lawsuit. Now he doesn't have all the money in the world to pay for it. And now there's a lawsuit of Fox News, which was millions of dollars about the fake elections and the machines, the Dominion machines.
Correct. Correct.
So there is money involved, there is reputations, there is companies, and they're still continuing to create the same story. We hear over and over of people that Joe Biden is in his third year, but there's still people that say that he's not the rightful president. So how do we overcome? How do we move past that?
As an educator, I always say education is the antidote to misinformation, to ignorance, to what's happening. It is a huge job. It is a huge job, and it is sometimes economically not good for groups that are trying to take advantage of that misinformation. I mean, if you think about a lot of third world countries that are being oppressed by the government, where the government pays subsidies to the poor people so they don't get education, they don't work or anything. So they are dependent on them. Okay. So the moment we are starting to educate, the moment we start giving the people tools to think, to become engaged, proactive, to be able to say something when they see something, then we can move forward. But I know politically, we're going to be fighting against a giant monster that is hidden, that is trying to pull all the, all the
strings.
Yeah, exactly.
And with it was proven that Russia tried to interfere in the elections. So that goes to show how social media, and there where we start the conversation, this is what we're going to see.
Correct, correct, correct. So for me is talking, speaking up.
And people now are afraid to speak up.
Yes.
That is another issue that we're fighting. Again, this generation is speaking up a little more. The new generation is speaking up a little more, but sometimes they're speaking up a little more out of passion and not necessarily fact checking, because, as you said, their news comes from TikTok.
Correct, correct. So, there has been many different ways to counter strategies to fight misinformation. Number one is be able to post things that are factual, that they counter that misinformation, but not on the same thread where that misinformation starts, because as I told you before, we are elevating the speech. So basically you start a different post. One thing that I tell you.
Okay, so if you forward, then you're contributing to
Correct.
To enhance the misinformation, not by saying, okay.
So for instance, let's say that I don't like your post And instead of giving you a thumbs down or saying you Gladys, blah, 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 okay, I can take a picture of that post and put it on my post with a comment that counter your speech, okay? And that way I can educate people in my post, okay?
So who's gonna say that your post is real and not the other one? That's the part that I'm, because now, for example, it depends on what news you watch. It depends on what political party you're in.
Yes,
And
correct. And
it's
unfortunately,
funny how you see one news, and I literally look at all the channels to see how it's being reported.
yes, it is.
And it's
And not only that, Facebook or any social media, because of the AI that they have, they pick on your choices, and then they're going to feed you information that fits your life.
you're correct. So you're not hearing the
It
other
is.
side.
Yes, I mean, again, I think that part of our responsibility is doing advocacy. And I think that advocacy lobby, it's not for everybody, but we need to advocate against the platform guidelines, okay? Because we need to hold those platforms accountable of their content. Yes, they're not the creators of the content. They have billions of users that are posting, but there needs to be some kind of content management.
Or accountability.
Correct. There
Or
needs to be a
accountability
regulation.
for what is being said.
Correct. I mean, definitely regulation. And
But then you go into the other side of the story about the freedom of speech. And we have the recent example of three top educators, which in my case, I thought it was extremely sad, being women in the top of their position, being women that were capable of making changes.
Yes, but you know what? I think that, I don't know if it was because of board advice or because they wanted to be PC. They align with basically with the First Amendment without thinking about the consequences of
Or the context, like
yes,
it was
exactly,
said,
the content.
because it was the context. But
you go to Germany, and even you go to Poland, and there are certain things that you don't say, that you are not allowed to say. Does it mean that you don't have a First Amendment? Yes, you have a First Amendment with regulations, okay?
Or with respect.
Yes, because hate speech is not going to be conducive to civilize conversations. And to talk about genocide in 2023, or even in 1935 or 1939, it is unacceptable. How many genocides do we need to have in this world for that word, okay, for that kind of action to be removed from our psyches?
No, and I totally understand, because they had the power to make changes. They had the power to bring, like if I was in the position of one of them, they would have the power to bring the two sides together and educate, which is being done in some universities. They're
Correct.
bringing the two sides together. They're talking about it. They are discussing future steps. They are, but not about, and that is why it's so sad.
So I want to add to what you're saying. So I have been in the March of the Living, and now I'm doing multi-generational trips to Poland. But it's mainly for Jewish people. And I feel that we need to open this to non-Jews, because that is the way that you open the opportunity to have discussions that are not just within
They're
one
not
group.
just being done. Correct.
Exactly. And the same thing with Israel, okay?
And
Let's
exactly. Because you take the people because it's the grandmother that want to show their kids and want to show what happened and where they came from. But there's a whole population that don't even understand it. And to your point, there are certain things that you don't even mention. And the example is in Germany. Germany now there is a mandatory education about what happened in the Holocaust.
Yes, and you go to Germany and you go to the Topography of Terror, which is a museum, and that museum is open and free for all. Okay, this is an opportunity that that Germany took upon itself to educate others. Okay,
Correct. They not only the opportunity, but they really learned from something that happened.
correct. And the
And
same thing in Auschwitz, in Majdanek, in Treblinka. There are tons of groups that are from different races, from different religions, creeds, and everything, that they come to learn what history is teaching us. Okay,
correct.
it's about humanity. It has nothing to do with which kind of God you pray to, which kind of color of skin you have. It doesn't matter.
It's about history. And
Correct.
with that, I really thank you
My
for
pleasure.
a great conversation. And to everyone, please stay safe. And above all, let there be peace.
Amen.
Have a great day,
Thank
and I
you.
will see you next week.